First off, is everybody having a good time?
Yes.
Do you enjoy the history?
Yes.
Okay. This is like my adopted little town. I've only been here for about 10 years now. Now, the one thing is, every once in a while, Ernie will show me, who's the owner of the company, will show me a photograph from the town of Orange. And I'll go, hey, I take my guest this way, so I thought I'd share it with you. So what we're going to do, we're going to pretend that we put a camera on top of the newspaper building, which is Starbucks.
Ooh.
And then the
I
camera
could go for some
is
coffee.
pointing this way. Imagine it. This is the alleyway at the turn of the century.
Wow.
You see the covered area right here with the flat roof?
Mm-hmm.
There's the covered area. They chopped it down. And then there's the flat roof.
That was the...
This is actually the loading dock for Ealing and Grote's General Store. Also known as the Great White Store, because when we go out onto the main street, all of the bricks facing out onto the street are the glazed white brick. Very expensive at the time period. Now, I'd like to think that the person I want to talk about is in this photo, but chances are he is not. He was actually a delivery boy for the store. He was an excellent horseman, but he was actually known for his singing ability. And one day, he will leave home and he will go to Los Angeles. His name was William Boyd. You know him as Hopalong Cassidy. He's actually a native of the town of Orange.
Wait, who? Oh my god, I didn't even know. I didn't recognize you. I thought you were just some random person. I was like, wait, what are you talking to me for?
Come on in, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. All right. Now remember how we talked about it? If a house can be haunted, what about individual objects within a house? What a better place to talk about that than an antique store.
Ooh.
Now, one of the things that's very interesting is that when we originally wrote the original tour, there were many places known for their ghostly activity, and we sent out like little sheets of them for people to write down what they've experienced. And since the beginning, we've always had an excellent relationship with Antique Depot. One of my favorite stories about this place is they had an assistant manager vacuuming the store after hours. And while she was vacuuming, she looked down one of the aisles and she sees an LP record get tossed into the aisle. Okay, now, an LP record. So, she thinks it is actually somebody who owns that little cubicle and they're staying late to organize their stuff. So she turns off the vacuum and she makes her way down the cubicle. Another LP record, and then another. And as she steps into the cubicle, she realizes she is the only one there. And all of the records have been taken out of their milk crates and fanned out as if somebody was examining the collection. Employees that work here will see pictures pop off of the walls, but they will not break. They've seen them gently glide down and land face up, protecting the picture from the glass. Items have been taken from cases and examined, only to be placed onto the wrong shelf. And later that day, it will go back to its original place. Some things are simply meant to be kept together. How many of you collect antiques? You're like, not anymore. Yeah, remember that everything contains the energy of its previous owners. Okay? So, whether it is jewelry, glassware, really ugly purses, it contains somebody else's life in one way or another. That's how come. See, I collect antiques. I like to collect Masonic things, things that belong to Freemasons. So whenever you come into a store, especially stores like this, and you see something you like, hold it in your hand. If it's locked up in a case, ask them to open the case. Hold it in your hand. Walk around with it. They've seen it before. Okay? If it gives you a good feeling or a neutral feeling, buy it. It now has a piece of you. But if it gives you a bad feeling, you now have only two choices. First choice, put it down and forget that you ever saw it. Or two, you buy it and you give it to your ex.
Yes!
The gift that keeps on giving.
That'd be a great gift for my ex.
One of the things I love is like every once in a while you never know what you're going to find in an antique store, especially in Orange. Last year, right about this time, I was taking a tour on a weekday tour, and I saw something in the window of Country Roads Antiques, and I didn't even want to raise an eyebrow to it because I didn't want anybody else on the tour to know that I saw it. And so the next morning, I'm an elementary school teacher of all things. I call them up, and I'm like, you know who I am? How much is it? Fine, hold it. I went there and I picked it up. I actually got a 1919 William Fold original Ouija board.
Oh, heck no.
Complete with the planchette.
Crazy.
Thank you. Yeah, I get a lot of people who are like, have you used it? And they're like, why not? Because I'm smart.
Something you do not want to mess with.
Yeah.
Why would you buy that?
That's not exactly.
For the history of it. It's very cool to have something like that. Okay, now, really quickly, you guys see Lollipop Nail Studio across the way? That is 146 South Glassell. This is 146 South Glassell, Orange County's first motorist. Yeah, that's that building. Okay, now the one thing is we did not write on this photograph. The original person who turned it into the archives wrote on it, and she wrote 1913 Bertie Claypole. Bertie is the fifth person on the right who rides with these hooligans on their Indian motorcycles. And he's also a mechanic in the shop. And in 1915, even though electrical light was readily available, portable light was still dicey. And so Bertie used a kerosene lantern to work at night. And one night, he will drop a kerosene lantern onto a floor soaked in motor oil and gasoline.
Oh, no.
And the building will go up, and he will die in the fire. People will talk about, they walk into the nail studio and they smell smoke. No big deal. It's a brick building. You can restore it all you want. The smell is in the bricks, but it doesn't explain why they smell smoke at an antique station next door. Satellite Market wasn't built until 1950. As well as in both buildings, people in the corner of their eye have seen fire. Including one person that worked at the Lollipop actually thought that the room was on fire, and so she pulled the fire alarm. And one person who worked there, unaware of the story of Birdie, actually claims that she saw somebody on fire. Now, a lot of people believe that this is what's known as a residual haunt. It's not spirit per se. It is simply a psychic imprint left on the place, a lot like the two young boys playing in the street. It's like a record player skipping in time. And what you happen to be seeing are the last minutes of Birdie Claypool. Wow. We have time for a lot more. Come on in, please. Come on in, please.
Sorry.
Come on in, please. No, come on in. No, I don't like you guys behind me. You freak me out. Okay. I loved it when last year I came here on a tour and we stopped here and this woman goes, "You're not going to talk about El Ranchito, are you?" And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to talk about it. How many people have ever eaten here before? I get a lot of people who say it looks a lot like a church. That's because it once was. It was once the First Baptist Church of Orange. And it actually suffered extensive damage in the Long Beach earthquake. And it was closed for many years, and then it was completely restored and opened up as PJ's Abbey. I have fantastic memories of PJ's Abbey. And they did have good food, and it was the general manager and his wife that actually contacted us and told us about the place being haunted. He talked about how him and his wife, who also worked in the restaurant, would come home after street fair. And they would come back to the restaurant with a big tray of utensils that needed to be washed in the kitchen. And when they unlock the door and they turn off the alarm, they'll hear all the pots and pans in the back of the kitchen shaking, even though they know they are the only ones there. A phenomenon known as shadow people have been spotted in the main dining room. And probably one of the most interesting spirits that inhabit the place is that of a little girl. People who dine here and they bring their children and they let their children run around the restaurant. By the way, do not do that. That irritates me. The children will come back and some of them will talk about how they played with the little girl. And that woman who said you're not going to talk about El Ranchito, she knew about it all too well. She dined here several months before with her husband and their young son, and he thought he was old enough to use the restroom by himself. And so he excused himself and he went downstairs, and he was gone far too long. And so when Dad went downstairs to get him, he found his son cowering in the corner, and he asked him what was wrong. And he said, "I didn't want to play with a little girl." Now, we do not know what it is, simply because the history of the church is actually very nice, with some founding members of the town of Orange used to be part of the church. So, a lot of people believe that it is simply something that happened before the church was built or an object that was brought in. Either way, something is not right about El Ranchito. The one in Santa Ana is better. Now, this is where I leave you. Does anybody have any questions about anything we talked about, people we spoke of, or people we slandered? So, we started the evening off with H.P. Lovecraft. We'll end tonight with two of my favorites. George Bernard Shaw, who said, "Life does not cease to be serious when you laugh, just as it doesn't cease to be funny when you die." Life is both serious and it's funny, so why should death be any different? Then, of course, my favorite poet, it's me. Tonight we walked where spirits dwelled, and we heard the stories they had to tell. We laughed a bit and we shuddered some, but most of all, we had some fun. And as we lie awake in our beds, we fear not spirits of the dead. For those who need to fear the ghosts, that is the one who did not properly thank their host.
Oh my god.
It's subtle, I know. Now, to answer your most important question, where am I? If you go down this street to the intersection, turn right, you are 1 block away from the Royer Mansion. Did you enjoy yourselves?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, really quickly, stuff that we have going on. This month, coming up, of course, October, okay, at the Dr. Hot Waffle Mansion in Santa Ana, the 22nd and the 23rd, we are going to be doing an exhibit. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, on the Victorian morning ritual. Including we're going to set the house up as if a wake is going on, and we're going to have morning jewelry, post-mortem photography, as well as a lecture will be done.
Wow.
I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you.